We're here today with Allan Simpson, founder of Baseball America, former Kelowna, BC native, and currently in Durham, North Carolina. Allan, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Great. Well, Baseball America has a long, great history, almost 30 years now. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how it got started, almost equivalent to a Hockey News. Really, the Baseball America is like a Bible for baseball fans. I'm sure people wonder, how did a Canadian get started in this?
Well, Sean, that's a great parallel that you drew there. Really, an American starting a hockey publication, because I did it in reverse. I started a baseball publication out of Canada, so it's obviously some significant obstacles that you have to overcome. Probably the major of which is public perception, because you don't sell a baseball publication out of Canada. And being a Canadian at a time where you just simply couldn't skip across the border to set up shop in the U.S. to take care of this craving that you have, I had to improvise as much as I could, and I moved from my home near Kelowna to White Rock, just south of Vancouver, right on the U.S. Canadian border, and essentially I started this business in my garage as a one-person operation. It was right on the border, and I could skip across the border pretty much at will to pick up mail, to have it printed there, to give every impression possible that this was an American product, when in fact it wasn't an American product. But I think that's just sort of adds to the intrigue of the story, as it did start from scratch out of my garage, and here it is 30 years later, and it's still going strong. It's really recognized as I guess the most influential voice of baseball in the U.S. at this point, has been for some years, and we really have never covered Major League Baseball, and that's I think the aspect of it that also adds a little bit to the intrigue, is we've always gotten into areas that are sort of off the beaten track a little bit, in terms of the minor leagues and college baseball and the draft and summer league baseball and some of those other things that you just don't see in mainstream newspapers or magazines, or even in daily papers.
Right. What was it that was the turning point that made you wake up and say, I want to start this publication? What was one or two of the drivers that got you going on this?
Well, again, growing up in Kelowna, when your closest major league team was San Francisco, which was 1,000 miles away at that time. That was before the days of the Seattle Mariners. I developed at age 10. Prior to that, I'd been just a great sports fan, but primarily hockey. Mm-hmm. But just the light went on when I made a trip to California when I was about a 10-year-old, and saw my first game. I saw my first game on TV. I saw just about everything that could have possibly happened on that trip. And I came back from that trip with just an insatiable appetite for baseball, and I guess I realized pretty quickly, well, there's not much out there to whet that appetite, and so I had to be creative. I subscribed to a publication, the Sporting News, and if I wanted to watch baseball, I had to go to Vancouver, Spokane, to watch minor league baseball, and you really had to improvise and work hard to become a baseball fan, because the information was not there like it is now to become a baseball fan. So I think I became a great minor league fan, great fan of college baseball. I worked in the summers in Alaska with a summer collegiate team that has since sent about 200 players to the big leagues. So I got my indoctrination into baseball along those lines. And I guess I was realizing towards the middle or the end of the 70s that the Sporting News had just been bought by the Times Mirror Corporation. They weren't focusing on minor league baseball, which they'd had been doing for a good number of years, and they were never covering college baseball. They were never covering the baseball draft. These are things I had an interest in, and I thought, gosh, there must be people in the U.S. If a Canadian has this kind of interest, there must be people in the U.S. that have this kind of interest. So I kind of saw an opening in the marketplace, because nobody else was stepping into this void that the Sporting News was obviously leaving. Mm-hmm. And I worked for the newspaper when I was in Fairbanks, Alaska during the summer. I had really no publishing background. I just had a big interest in baseball, and I soon discovered I was in over my head a little bit. But I think it's just perseverance that got us through the first couple of years with Baseball America till it got up and off the ground. But that was a struggle. But that's essentially where the idea came from. It's just because there's nobody else out there stepping into the void that the Sporting News very conveniently left there for us.
Great. Well, in the second part of this two-part interview, love to hear more about this story, and certainly your transition going from Kelowna, BC to Durham, North Carolina, and the acquisition or the partnership with Miles Wolff, and how that process happened. So let's proceed again to the next second part of this interview. And again, here we are with Allan Simpson, founder of Baseball America.